All right, so we're going to continue talking about photosynthesis. So if we look at photosynthesis, there are really two parts to it. There's a light reaction and a dark reaction. And in the book, they talk about light and light energy. It says light energy is a type of kinetic energy made up of little energy packets called photons. Let me move my face out of there. Okay. Photons. Okay. There's something called the electromagnetic spectrum. For example, here are different energy waves. Here are radio waves. Here's sunlight. Here's the spectrum here. UV rays, X-rays, gamma rays, so there's like more energy over here. But visible light falls under here, okay? And so the plants have these things called chloroplasts, and they can capture the sun's energy, right? And they get excited by different wavelengths of light, okay? So it says range of energy that's organized into different wavelengths, short wavelengths, high energy. So here there are high energy. But what about the visible spectrum and the pigments, the plant pigments inside the chloroplasts, okay? It says plant pigments can only absorb specific wavelengths. Therefore, plants produce several types of pigments. Okay, so this is an important picture. It shows the types of wavelengths that plants can absorb. They absorb blue light, okay, and red light, okay? And in reality, the reason the leaves look green is because they are reflecting the green, okay? So for example, when you look at light, it's white, it has all the colors in it, okay? If you look at my shirt, I don't know, I have all kinds of colors, but if you see yellow, the reason you see yellow is being reflected back at you. The reason the plant leaves look green is because that light is being reflected back. So really, the chloroplasts are absorbing blue light and red light. All right, so here it is, light from the sun, absorbing blue and red, reflecting green. All right, so photosynthesis powered by light energy. Photons hit the chlorophyll. We have molecules that absorb that energy, okay? So we absorb the energy, okay, and we can trap it, okay? And then in the, here's the photo part. There's a whole, it's called electron transport chain. You guys don't have to worry about it, but they show it in the book. And then when we go down in the chloroplast at the end, if you remember ATP was our energy molecule. The photons, that energy is going to put the phosphate back on the ADP to get ATP. And now the plants can use ATP to make sugar. Okay. So the photo portion of photosynthesis is this. You don't have to worry about all these details. You just have to worry about grabbing the photons to make ATP. Okay. So photo part, energy is transferred into chemical energy. Okay, water producing oxygen here in the photo part. The synthesis part, okay, that is where we're using the ATP to make sugar. Okay, so here in the chloroplast here, the ATP, the carbon dioxide goes through something called the Calvin cycle and we get our sugar. So here in the dark reactions. Again, you don't have to worry about the details. You just need to know the big idea that we're going through, and we're going to pump out some sugar. So the second part, synthesis, in Calvin cycle, and we're getting the sugar. During this phase, carbon from CO2, carbon dioxide from the air in the atmosphere is attached to molecules in the chloroplast. Sugars are built, okay? And molecules are regenerated to be used again. Okay, the fixation, building, regeneration consume ATP from the photo part. All right. So different types of plants do this differently. There are what are called C3 plants and C4 plants. The plants use water, of course. Plants, how are they going to get carbon dioxide in and O2 out. How do they release water? At the bottom of the leaf, at the bottom, we'll see if we're going to see it in lab this week. There are these little openings and they're called stomata, and that is for gas exchange. So stomata are for gas exchange. Different types of plants do it a little differently. There are adaptations or evolutionary adaptations. Are they in hot areas, etc., where, the C3 plants versus the C4 plants. You don't have to worry about chem photosynthesis and the different photosynthetic pathways. All right, so that's photosynthesis. Light synthesis making. So using the photons from the energy from the sun, grabbing it and then making sugars. And of course, using carbon dioxide for the CO2, using water, and then making these sugars. Okay, so now respiration. When we say respiration, what do we think? What do you think? Respiration. People, this is why you breathe, okay? Respiration, inspiration, expiration, that's respiration. Okay. There's what's called cellular respiration. Cells do this. People, this is why we need oxygen, taking in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. It actually has to do with energy and energy use, specifically ATP. So you see these little guys are eating. Why are they showing these little guys? Well, little guys have a lot of growing to do. And if they have a lot of growing to do, they're going to use energy. So this is respiration. So there's like organismal respiration, breathing, or there's cellular respiration. So quote, breathing or gas exchange on the cellular level. Okay. And that's what we're going to focus on. That's the end of this chapter. All right. So cellular respiration converts food molecules. So taking the energy in the food into ATP, breaking it out down to make ATP. And then the cells can use ATP to do work. Okay. Universal source of energy for living organisms. Now they show these little guys, they're so cute, yes, but this doesn't just happen in animals, this happens in plants too. Why do plants make sugar? Plants don't make sugar for us, right? Plants make sugar for plants, okay? We just happen to take, and you think about it, you're gonna say, Miss Collins, I don't care about plants, blah, blah. You know what? We could not survive without plants. Well, maybe we could using bacteria, but really life as we know it would not be the same. Even if you go, Miss Collins, I'm a strict, carnivore. I don't eat plants. Guess what? The cows you eat ate plants, okay? So it is part of our cycle. We need plants are really important. So respiration is the process of breaking down those sugars from the plants to make ATP to do work. All right. So how do living organisms fuel the reaction? Cellular respiration, the big picture. So plants do this, and of course, animals do this too. So here's the big picture. Now, if we look at it, it almost looks like, the opposite of photosynthesis. It almost looks like you took the photosynthesis and you switched, okay? The big picture looks like the reverse of photosynthesis, but in reality, all the little things that are happening are not the reverse, okay? Now, if you look, cellular respiration, the big picture, again, this is a really important slide because it shows you the big picture. So this happens in animal cells, this happens in plant cells. In the cells of plants and animals, high energy bonds of food molecules are broken down, releasing the energy that went into creating them. So, animals. We said, why do you need oxygen? Okay, oxygen from the air, sugar from the food, okay? So respiration takes oxygen and sugar, goes through a whole bunch of reactions. This arrow is a whole bunch of reactions, okay? And the end product releases CO2. So people, when we breathe, we're taking in O2, right? Taking in O2. We're releasing CO2, releasing water, and releasing ATP. ATP energy, right? That energy molecule to do work. So again, big picture, it looks like it's the reverse of photosynthesis. Big picture, it kind of is, but all the little things that are happening are not the same, okay? All right, so let's look. Okay, so human example, okay? So we eat food, right? In our food, there's energy, specifically potential energy, yes? So we eat food, digest it. Digest means break it down. Think of, I don't know, a hamburger. There's a bunch of energy in there, right? Your cells can use it, but they can't use it in that form. They have to break it down. So chew, 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 that's digestion. Mix with the saliva, goes into your stomach, mix some more with the chyme, with the acid, gets into your small intestine. Now we're going to absorb it and gets to the cells. Now the cells can break it down to release ATP. So absorb nutrients into the bloodstream, deliver nutrients to the cells. At this point, our cells can begin to extract some of the energy. So at this point, that's when cellular respiration occurs, okay? So the energy is in the food molecules, specifically in the bonds, okay? So living organisms extract energy through a process called cellular respiration, in which the high energy bonds of sugar and other energy-rich molecules are broken, releasing the energy that went into creating them. The cell captures the food molecules from the bonds of ATP. This process requires fuel, oxygen, yields ATP, water, and carbon dioxide. So for humans or for animals, taking O2, release CO2, that's helping us break the sugar to make that ATP. So first step of cellular respiration, there are two things that are happening. Glycolysis is one of them. So again, I like this picture because it shows it happens in plants, animals, and bacteria, right? Every living organism, large or small, extracts energy from glycolysis. Lice, think of lysol. Lice is to break. Glycolysis is breaking down the sugar, specifically glucose. So here's again the big picture. Here, where does it happen? It's going to happen in the mitochondria. Remember the mitochondria? That's like the power plant of the cell, the energy. There it is, okay? So taking sugar, right? It takes some energy to get it going, but break down the sugar and release some energy, okay? So the first step of respiration is glycolysis, breaking down the glucose, okay? The second step is called the Krebs cycle. So literally, the glucose is broken down into pyruvates. The pyruvates, all these little arrows, the arrows are symbolizing reactions, okay? Chemical reactions that are happening, acetyl-CoA. We go into the Krebs cycle, and this is where the CO2 is released. But in the end, what's the big deal is we pump out a lot of ATP. So through breaking glucose, going through a bunch of reactions, we end up making a lot of ATP. And then the cell can use ATP to do work. Okay. So payoffs, ATP, NADH, FADH2, those are energy molecules also. So, yeah. So here, a huge amount of additional energy can be harvested by cells after glycolysis. The end product of glycolysis is pyruvate, Krebs cycle, okay? This breakdown releases carbon dioxide, so that's why we exhale. That's why we release carbon dioxide, because we're constantly doing this. You guys, just being alive requires energy, and we're constantly doing this. The electron transport chain, again, this is happening in the mitochondria, and we're pumping out, we're ending up with ATP. You don't have to know the details. If you look, we end up with ATP. So we're breaking down the sugars to get that ATP. So here is the big picture. Glycolysis, breaking glucose into pyruvate. Now in the mitochondria, pyruvate, Krebs cycle, CO2 is released, oxygen is used, pumping out tons of ATP and ATP to do work. Okay, we're going to stop here. We have one more quick video and we're done with this chapter.